Everybody, welcome to another edition of the Unstoppable Podcast. My name is Ralph Graves Jr. So glad you guys could be a part of this podcast tonight, today, whenever time of day you're listening. My guest is Frank Sean Johnson. Now, you may not have heard of that name yet, but you will. He is an actor. He's a comedian. He does a lot. If you turn on TV, you probably see him in a few commercials. I think he's been on a few Law and Orders. Welcome to the program, brother.
Thank you, Pastor Graves. Appreciate you, brother.
Man, I am so glad to have you here, man. And you have a unique story, and I just wanted to share it with my unstoppable audience, man. Audience, tell them a little bit about yourself, man. You're from South Jersey, like myself. Give them a little background, then we'll jump in.
Okay. Well, yeah, from South Jersey, that big town, Chislehurst, nestled right in between Acco and Hamilton, representing the Hearst. Also, I got roots in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia. I basically had a parent in each place. So I grew up South Jersey mostly, man. Ended up joining the Air Force and coming home. And then that's kind of where, the story gets a little crazy, but we're gonna get into that. But I'm a child of God, you know what I mean? Love the Lord. And, that's kind of been my fuel for everything that I do.
But so you grew up in Chislehurst, South Jersey. And for those of you who don't know, Chislehurst is not a real big town. It's a smaller town. We would call it a two-horse town, right? It's part of Berlin, right? Berlin town.
Well, we worked our way up to two horses. We had one horse, one cop, one firefighter. We had one everything, but we worked it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you grew up in Chislehurst, and we know a lot of the same people. You went away to the Air Force, man. When did you join the Air Force?
1990, right? A couple years out of high school.
How many? Well, thank you for serving.
Absolutely.
And how many years did you serve?
8.
8. Okay. All right.
Yeah, 8.
You come home after 8 years. Tell us the story.
Well, I didn't quite make it to the 8 years. I went in. Everything happened real quick, Pastor. I joined. Like a couple months later, I went to basic training. Then I went to tech school, came home. And a couple months after I got home, I was deployed. This is when, the Middle East wars began and Desert Shield and Desert Storm. So I was deployed, back then. And, you had to go. So I went. I was stationed in Germany as a psychiatric specialist. So basically, our job was, to monitor, evaluate, and treat, the mental issues, just to paint it with a big brush, all the psychological issues that come from war. So I kind of had firsthand, look at the effects, of that war. So that was my job there, and whatever else they told you to do, to be quite honest.
Okay.
Yeah, but came home, after that was over, thank God I made it through, not necessarily unscathed, because, there's some things you can't unsee, you can't unhear, you can't unsmell. There's some things that just going to stick with you. But when I came home, I was grateful to be home, grateful to have family and everything home waiting for me. And then, I basically came from one war back into another war. And as being a young guy in Philly, I made it through, but, I had some issues when I came back from the service. I was just in the wrong place, wrong time, with the wrong people, and it caught up to me.
How'd it catch up to you? Tell us what happened. Tell the audience what happened to you.
All right. Well, I was shot in the back and paralyzed it wasn't a domestic dispute. I guess it was like road rage, really. I wasn't driving, but the other person was driving. And me and a couple friends of mine were just walking and almost got hit by this car who was, driving backwards, and, young guys just driving, joyriding, basically almost hit me and my friends. And one of my friends had something to say to him. And, one thing led to the next thing. And we thought it was over. I mean, this argument was about that quick. Hey, man, what's wrong? Something wrong with your brakes? Yeah, next time, get out the street. All right, whatever. We out. We leaving. We walking away. I was 19? 19, 20. This kid was like 15 maybe. And I mean, I wasn't going to sit there and argue with some 15-year-old kid. So we walk away, and just a couple minutes later, man, just these three cats came up behind us and just started shooting.
Okay.
So I got hit. Nobody else. Well, a girl got hit who was at the next corner. She got hit 4 times. I got hit twice. There was 3 guys, 3 guns. They were emptied their clips because the detective said there was like 33 shell casings on the scene. So it was 3 different guns, and they basically, I mean, they just emptied everything out. And I got hit in my back and through my arm. I was paralyzed on the spot. Yeah, it was a crazy night, man. It was a real crazy night. I mean, I don't know how much time we got, but it's so much packed into that night.
Yeah.
And I keep discovering new stuff even today. It's wild. The more I tell the story, little details will come in and be like, wow.
Yeah. Well, this is called the Unstoppable Podcast. Now, that didn't stop him, ladies and gentlemen. That did not stop him. That didn't stop him. He was paralyzed. How long were you paralyzed, Sean?
Man, it's hard to tell because I stopped like counting days and stuff once I got shot. Like my whole perspective of life just changed. But maybe it was a few months that I was paralyzed, and before things start coming back real slow. But that waiting for things to come back. That was the hard part. The hard part was even thinking they would come back.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because the doctors, they basically told me that I wasn't going to walk again because I got shot in my spine.
Let me ask you, man, at such a young age, man, what kept you fighting? What kept you saying, no, they got to be wrong? Because, man, you're doing amazing things right now. So you had to have some sort of resilient, or even though you were young, your mindset still had to be a lot different than others who would have just accepted that. I always tell people the doctor will give you a report, but there's always another report. That's
the truth. I always say, there's a reason why doctors have practices. They don't have perfects.
Yeah.
They got practices. You know what I mean? They go off a theory and case study. That's it. In their opinion. That is it. So, he had his opinion, and I respected it, and I almost believed it. But if I didn't have friends and family that was locked into that word, man, if I didn't have them coming up and reading to me scriptures while I wasn't even conscious, bro. Reading to me, all these scriptures on faith and healing, and don't forget what the doctor said. I remember that was one first things a friend of mine, Barrington, has said. He said, forget what the doctor said, man. They don't know. They don't know. But the one who does know, that's the one you talk to. And whatever his decision is, that's what it's going to be. But believe, he wants the best for you, and then go from there. So to answer your question, man, I had the faithful, I had some saints in my corner that was kind of pointing me in the right direction.
Sure. And at such a young age, man, you really held on and believed. You and I are men of faith. I make no mistake about it. I'm a born again believer, and I know you are too. And so people listening, they know that about me, and now they know it about you. And so you held on to the word of God at that time, even at a young age. So fast forward, how do you lose your leg?
Okay, yeah, there's a whole lot in between that. Like, I didn't lose my leg.
Okay, all right.
I was paralyzed, and things started to come back slowly. Okay, it was a toe. I remember being in a room full of people, and according to the stories, I had hundreds of people come through. I wasn't even conscious half of the time, but I remember one time I was awake, and there were a lot of people in the room. And I had, my feet were in these little bunny slipper things for circulation. And if this is my foot, my toe did like this. It was that subtle. But wow. I saw in my mind, it was shaking like this, man. And that was the beginning of God proving himself to me. Amen. Because I had already in my mind believed that I would walk again. Yeah. And that toe, it's something so small and so minute, man. It was so huge for me. So that just fueled my faith even more that, okay, if this is moving, this is going to move. And it just moved, this going to move. And it just kind of snowballed, into me walking, but it was a long journey from learning. I had to learn how to walk again.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to do the things that I had taken for granted my whole life. Like even now, we don't think left, right, left, and all the muscles in your feet that keep you balanced. If you don't have that, you take a step, you fall over because there's no balance. So man, it took me a couple of years to go from that to having a leg brace on and being able to walk without a walker or without a cane. And now I'm still a challenge for me now, but the leg, and I had my leg the whole time.
Okay.
It was just one leg was just paralyzed. Well, I was paralyzed from the waist down. Then everything started coming back. And then I had about 80% back, except for my right leg from the knee down.
Okay.
Still paralyzed, wasn't giving me no love.
Okay.
So, I was able to live with, I was actually really grateful because the alternative was what the doctor said.
Right.
I wouldn't even be standing up. I'd be in a wheelchair. He told me, you need to go to school for something you can do in a wheelchair. Because I was about to go to school to take my prerequisites to become a state trooper.
Okay.
And so he was like, yeah, you got to do something from a wheelchair. So anyway,
yeah.
So it took me a while to get to the point where I was walking again. And, but with the paralysis, it's just, you have to keep an eye on your feet, just like diabetics.
Okay.
That's the most important thing. Keep an eye on your feet. You get a sore, it's a problem. Same thing with mine, because I ain't had no feeling in my feet.
Okay.
So if I get a blister or cut or something, I don't know about it, gets infected, I got to amputate. So that's basically what happened. Okay. After 20 years of, having my leg and wearing a brace to walk, I actually lost one of my legs to MRSA, to an infection. And I actually got infected in the hospital when I was in the hospital for something else.
And that was 20 years later.
Later, yeah. Wow. My amputation was in 2013. I got shot in 1993.
Wow. And so I know going through these things, man, I know you probably have some questions, but your resilience is remarkable because you get into acting and plays and comedy. How do you get into that? And knowing your personality, I've never seen you whimper. I know you might have had bad days, but I've never seen you whimper, heard you complain. But I've watched you act. I've seen you do some comedic things. How did you get into that? How did you use that to even though it's a tragedy, you still got into acting and playing make pretend for a living?
Yeah. Well, I always wanted to play make pretend. You know what I mean? I always wanted that. As a matter of fact, like when I got shot at the time, I was part of a crew, a rap crew. Like I had my own rap crew. It was 4 of us and DJs and everything.
Okay.
But some of the trajectory of my plans wasn't going to be something that I would have been proud of. You know what I mean?
Right.
We were very talented, and it was in me to perform. It was in me to write. You know what I mean? But I was just doing it for the wrong reasons and the wrong intent. But I always knew I had a message. I always knew I was creative. I always knew that I could maybe take a message and relay it in a way that somebody can digest it. You know what I mean? Just based on how I do it. So and that, eventually led me to, go back to, some of the things I wanted to do as a child. And acting was one of them. And I really couldn't. Well, it started in church. So I got to, join the drama ministry and got to start exercising some of that. But I couldn't go full-fledged because I had a family, man. You know what I mean? I had a family of 5. Yeah. And they talk about starving, artists. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
So, I didn't want to, sacrifice my kids to my career. Sure. So I was in IT and, for 25 years or so like that. And then when my kids got to a certain age, I'm like, all right, maybe I can explore this now. And that's what happened.
Now, listen, man, if you could be remembered for one thing, with all of that, if you could be remembered when the time has come for you to be remembered, what would you want to be remembered for? If you could be remembered for one thing, Sean?
One thing. remember for one thing. I think, I think it would be like when I said about all these people that came to see me in the hospital.
Yeah.
I was encouraging people that were coming to see me.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I was telling them it's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. It's fine. I'm telling them not to worry. If I can be remembered for someone who had, enough faith to increase their faith in my tragedy, I think that's something that they'll be able to use and have been using later, now, wherever they are,
Yeah.
to go back to that point and be like, man, I remember, when Sean Frank, whoever his name is, was in this situation and he told me this and now look at him. And that's crazy that he said that. And you know what, brother pastor, I had to go through that myself. Yeah. Because I was in the hospital with a guy next to me who couldn't move from his chest down.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And he's sitting over there and he's just looking at me with his eyes and turned his head. And he's giving me advice.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you may not have seen me, complaining and down and out, but he did. You know what I mean? He saw me every night when all the visitors left after 8 o'clock and ain't nobody else there. And I'm sitting there and I'm crying in bed and I'm calling, big tough guy, I'm calling my mom. And, he saw all that. But he was able to encourage me in his situation. And to this day, I still remember that. I still feel that because that was amazing to me.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Where do you get your, because I know you wrote a play or two. Didn't you write a couple of them? 3 of them?
I wrote one major play, and the other ones were kind of like, mini plays, kind of like what I did for you.
Where did you get your inspiration from, man? To like, what did you tap into to write those major plays? Where'd you get your inspiration from to write that play?
I guess just what I see, what I see, the people in my life. The play that I did was called Pigs and Pearls. Talking about casting your pearls before swine, because I see, and it was really geared toward women and for the most part, but it really is for all of us. I mean, casting your pearls before swine is, giving something that is of value to yourself to something that can never appreciate the value. A pig can never appreciate the pearls. I don't care, how smart the pig is, it'll never appreciate pearls around its neck. Yeah. And so that was kind of, my inspiration with that, and my mother, growing up, watching what my mother, went through with, raising, all these kids by herself and not really understanding or knowing her value. So I really just wanted to plant that seed, in the world, man, that, we are valued, and to know your value. Number one, know your value, and nobody ever cheat you.
Now you've acted so much, and I know I've seen you on TV. I've seen you in commercials. I even seen you were you playing basketball in a wheelchair one time?
Yeah. That was one of those commercials, one of those healthcare commercials.
So I know you're part of the Actors Guild, right? And I know that acting thing can be tough. And so what's an insult that you received that you're pretty proud of?
That's a good question. An insult.
That you may have received out there. I'm pretty proud that, I learned from that. I'm pretty proud. Like I'm too much or whatever, And maybe you never viewed it as an insult. I don't know. A backhanded compliment, I should say, because folks love a backhanded compliment. Like, you could look for a bald guy.
Right. It's real hard for me to receive insults. Right. It really is. And I mean, it's the hardest thing in the world. And I feel like I know they're out there, and I know they're unless it's like really blatant, but still I can respect somebody's opinion, even if I don't agree with it. And being an actor, you can't be insulted. Like, you won't work. Right. You know what I mean? You won't work if you're insulted, because, let's just take, for instance, the audition process. Okay. You get, whatever, you apply for this audition, you get a script or whatever, you go do it. And then you wait. And that's it. They don't tell you. If you don't get it, then you just don't hear from them. That's it. The only time they call you back is when you got it.
Okay.
You just, can't wait. So I remember a coach, acting coach, telling me one day, they said, you as an actor, you have to have the mentality of a baseball player.
Okay.
And a baseball player, the best baseball players in the world will hit 3 out of 10 balls.
Okay.
That's the greatest. 300 or 300, that's the greatest. Wow. They said, you got to be able to be happy with that. Those other 7, forget about it. If you can get 1 out of every 10 auditions, you're going to be a very successful actor. And that's just the mentality you got to have. And that just kind of rolls down to everything else, to people, to insults, to, I mean, even with my leg, like people say stuff about my leg, but it's only because they're curious, you know what I mean? Or they're not used to interacting with somebody like me. So yeah. I'm sure the insults is out there, man, but honestly, I don't think I hear them.
Well, that's good. Hey, that's like water on a duck's back. You got water on the... So here I am. I'm 18, I'm 19, I'm 20 years old. I'm facing some adversity, you know, that's why I wanted you to tell your story, you know, but here I am 18, 19, 20, 30, whatever the case may be. And I'm facing some adversity and I want to quit. I want to give up. I want to throw in the towel. What are you saying to me right now, whether it's physical, whether it's financial, whether it's, you know, I'm a single mom, I'm a single dad, I have some purpose, some passions, and I just can't really seem to get to them. Encourage me right now, man.
I would say the victories, man, are in the small wins, the really small wins. And I learned this in the hospital trying to walk. So let's just look at that. You know what I mean? You gotta stand before you can walk. You know what I mean? You gotta bounce up before you take a step. You know, but it all goes back to standing up. You know what I mean? The fact that my legs didn't work anymore, you know how much courage it had to take just to try? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like to try to stand up and fall and stand up again and fall and try to take a walk and fall. And I would say the small victories are in the very small things, like the fact that you want to stand up, or the fact that you were able to walk 2 feet today. That's a victory. And I think if you focus on your wins, you won't see the losses. You know, everybody's winning at something. Everybody's winning at something, but we get so focused on the big picture. You know what I mean? And if I was to think from the hospital bed, I want to get up and run and play ball. You know what I mean? That's way too far. That's way too far. Come on back a little bit. You want to get up. Let's stop there. Let's get up.
Yeah.
You know, and then work from there. So it's just those small things. And then you just build on top of that. And the next thing you know, you got your life back, you got your mentality back, and you're scaling, you know, these obstacles and buildings, and you're jumping hurdles, and you don't realize it because you had all these little small things that got you over the things that you thought you couldn't get over.
Yeah.
So yeah, small victories, man.
Well, man, thank you for sharing that. You guys listening, small victories. We know that you got huge aspirations.
Right.
But take it from a man who had to figure out how to walk again. Man, thanks for sharing that, man.
Not to mention how to go to the bathroom again. Wow. You know what I mean? How to interact with people again.
Wow.
They took me to a store from the wheelchair and taught me how to shop, how to open doors and everything.
Man.
And I'm going to tell you, the toughest thing for me to do was that. When I went back in, I didn't want to go back outside anymore. They said it's a culture shock because you've never interacted with the world like this.
Yeah.
I was looking at everybody's belly button. Just that thing is like, you're looking up at everybody. And for a man, that changes your whole mentality. Like now I'm looking at kids. I'm even with kids. You know, people got to look down at me. People trying to help me do every little thing. So I had to adjust to that, man. So it was a lot of adjustment. But you know what? Them small victories and, you know, my faith, my family kept me on point for sure.
Man, listen, you've inspired me, you know, well, and I do this a lot, man. And bruh, I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing that, man. Like we never think of it from that perspective. You know, you you weren't born like that. You
Right.
were Air Force, rocking and rolling, rap. You had a rap career, athlete. You know, you was that guy, but you kept fighting through it. And guess what? You still are that guy, man. You are one of my favorite people to watch and keep an eye on, man, because you're definitely inspired. And it has nothing to do with you just fighting through the fact that you got one leg, but just who you are, man, the personality and the resilience that you have, man. We're blessed to know you, man. Now, listen, where can my audience find you? Are you working on anything? Do you have anything out there? Can they tell me what Instagram they can follow? Tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook under Frank Sean Johnson. I have there's actually I'm in a film called Christmas and Me, which is on Amazon.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's out right now.
It's in theaters as well.
Really?
And Life in Me is another one.
I'm gonna watch it tonight.
Yeah. The Christmas and Me is in theaters. Is that one on Amazon yet? I know Life in Me is, but this one, that's the latest one I'm doing with Sebastian Foxworth, Productions. But if you go on my page, you'll see whatever else I'm doing on there. Wow. And my website is frankseanjohnson.com.
All right, repeat the page again. Repeat the page so they can get there.
The page is frankseanjohnson.com. Sean spelled SEAN. And Frank Sean Johnson is also my page name for Facebook and Instagram.
Man, we're going to be looking out for everything Frank Sean Johnson, man. You're going to be on a Hallmark channel, right? In a Hallmark movie, right?
Yeah, actually, that's funny you say that, because I actually wrote a screenplay that we were going to pitch to Hallmark.
Let me ask you this, because I got some people on here that want to write screenplays, and you hear that? He wrote a screenplay that he's going to pitch to Hallmark, so you can do the same thing. That maybe I'll have you back to talk about that, but that screenwriting process, I may have you come back and talk about that, man, because I have some aspiring, writers and those who want to know how to break in on that side of the camera, not on the other side, for the front side, man. So we have folks on Instagram Live. Folks have checked in. Tiffany says she commends you, man. She's really, she give you a salute.
Thank you, Tiff. Thank you.
Malik said, well spoken, my friend. Man, listen, our journeys mean something to people. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Now, I asked this closing question to a lot of guests, and if you ever listen to the podcast, you've heard it before. I have a closing question. Simply, if you could have a billboard anywhere in any city, a billboard anywhere in any city, where would it be and what would it say?
It would be here in Philadelphia. And maybe like where I got shot.
Wow.
Yeah. That right there on that corner. And it will say, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Wow.
And I've had to do that.
The things you look at change. Wow. Okay. I love that, man. Tell me where that came from.
Yeah, I'm about to lie now, because I'm trying to get. I got the quote from what is his name? It's a quote. I love the quote, and I can't remember who said it.
Well, whatever it is, when we put on the billboard, we're gonna put your name under it. But man, thank you for being a part of the Unstoppable program. Thank you for taking out the time today, man, to just sit with me and rap and make this a better program. And guys, look out for everything Frank Sean Johnson. Guys, thank you for checking out the Unstoppable podcast. Been brought to you by Live Again Wellness. If you're in the South Jersey area, come visit. That is hydration and vitamins and everything else. Live Again Wellness. And also Legal Shield. Legal Shield is a proud partner of the Unstoppable program. Just go to Graves Ralph 642 wearelegalshield.com and you'll find out all about it. But Sean, thank you for being part of this program, and may God continue to bless you. And guys, remember, let's be unstoppable together. See ya.